I'd like to call to order the meeting of Township of Hamilton for Monday, July 16, 2018. Please join me with the flag salute. Ronnie?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I did talk with the school board.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting a notice of this meeting on the bulletin board in the municipal building and by publication in the Press of Atlantic City on January the 5th, 2018, and the Atlantic County Record on January the 10th, 2018. Mr. Gishard?
Present.
Mr. Kurtz?
Present.
Mrs. Link?
Here.
Mr. Silva?
Here.
Mayor Schenker?
Here. Can we have a moment of silence for private reflection? Thank you. Guest presentations. Tonight we have Frank Vogel, who's the superintendent of Hamilton Township Schools. Has something he'd like to talk to us about.
Absolutely.
Pretty big, I understand.
Well, yeah, I heard a little something about it, things are brewing. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and good evening to the folks who are behind me. Happy day. I'm Frank Vogel, I'm the superintendent over at the school, and I'm here tonight to present to you our ideas about an up-and-coming referendum. And my friend Ian is passing out a little pamphlet. Ian, you're welcome to pass that. I realize I have so many people, I would have peppered all of you with one of these pamphlets here. But the pamphlet is a short little briefing in regards to the proposed referendum and projects that's up and coming in October. The district is going to have the opportunity to get some things done in the referendum. And I did take the liberty of providing to the members of council the complete referendum list as well as the ESIP, which are two different things. But we're going to spend a little bit of time here tonight talking about it. And Mr. Mayor, if you could, it's probably best for the interest of everyone involved if you actually give me a time frame, because I could be here for 5 minutes or I could be here for about an hour. So give me an idea what best suits your schedule.
Let's keep it to about 15.
15, all right, very well. Now our architect, John Weiss, is just coming in here. He's going to set up some photos and slides over there for you, some architectural design drawings.
Frank, while you're speaking, just another question. Are you going to put the show on the road so that the majority of our residents...
Absolutely am. You're probably going to see me at the Merchants Association. You're going to see me, obviously, PTA and things like that. A National Night Out, we'll probably be passing out some pamphlets. By the time the referendum is ready to, for you guys to go to the polls, you're probably going to be sick of hearing about the referendum. And I would encourage anyone, especially anyone in the audience tonight, if you know someone that has questions or you'd like to reach out to me, there's always a place at the table, have a cup of coffee, a conversation, and let's talk about some of the projects. And I'll just give you a real brief overview. And Councilman Silver, I do appreciate that. I really do extend that offer sincerely.
Well, the reason I'm concerned is, a third of our population are seniors.
Sure.
And obviously they live on fixed incomes.
Absolutely.
And I'm concerned that they understand this thing the way that you want to present it so it makes the most sense for them to understand.
And I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things we're looking at and highlighting in the referendum is these are needed projects. And if you don't mind, I'll ask my friends in the audience to help me a little bit. How many of you have a home that has a heater in it that's 27 years old? You could be related to the Hess School because our Hess School heater is 27 years old. It's past its operational life. Drive by the Hess School. The facade on the front is literally crumbling off and falling off. The paint on the front, on the top of the balusters up there, it's deteriorating rapidly. So a lot of the projects that you had the opportunity to review are nuts and bolts. In addition, especially for the seniors who are near and dear to my heart, these are folks that are the base and the heart of our community. If and when this passes, it'll be a $130 tax reduction for them because we're timing it in the form of a referendum falling off from X number of years ago to this one we're floating now. So those two kind of marry together quite nicely. So the projects are paid for, and there's actually a $130 tax decrease to the average.
Was that before they increased your state aid?
That is, yeah, but the operating budget and the fiscal budget and the referendum are two separate items, but yes, we
And
did
this
receive.
this
an increase in
130
state.
savings, will that be every year for the next 30 or 40 years?
Well, it all depends on savings. For the upcoming year, we're projecting $130 savings. Good questions. All right. Mr. Vice, you are on the show to talk about this. I did ask council how long. They said about 15 minutes. I've taken about 5. So we're going to have to limit, how long we talk here. That's okay.
I have to give him the microphone.
Speak pretty loud. I don't know if it'll pick you up.
Yeah, we're trying to record this, so.
Good evening, everyone. John Vice, Principal with Freytag, Vice, Hopkins, Duthie Architects in Trenton. As Mr. Vogel indicated, these are capital projects primarily, many of which have been accumulating for years. The district has not really been in a position to implement a number of these capital improvements, things that have just begun to deteriorate to the point that if certain steps aren't taken with certain projects, it'll continue to become a problem and then potentially cause other problems in the building. But for all intent and purposes, these are all capital in nature. A lot of it had to do from some deferred projects that had accumulated over the years. In addition, a lot of it had to do with, bear with me 1 second, I'll just shut this off so it doesn't ring. And a lot of it had to do with the impact of changes in the state aid formulas sometime around the end of 2008, going into 2009. The Department of Education had withdrawn its support for debt service aid as well as regular aid to operating districts. And there was a requirement for districts to utilize capital reserve funds and surplus. Fortunately, as the economy's gotten stronger and there's been some house cleaning in Trenton in terms of them being able to retire some debt and do some other things, the legislation is in a position to support debt service aid again, which is a very positive move. So it happens to coincide very fortuitously with a retirement of older debt. Again, many of these projects have gone on the list for over a decade, and we've tried through the years to try to implement them, but there just hasn't been local share funding to do them. So I think this is a very good opportunity for Hamilton. Many of the projects are similar from school to school. I'll touch on them briefly. We don't have to get overly detailed in the work, but starting at the Sheener Elementary School, each of the 3 schools, there's a site component of work and there's building improvements that are to be done. Within the building, a lot of it has to do with dealing with older mechanical equipment that's gone beyond its useful life. For example, in the 1950s wing towards the front of 3rd Street, and then moving into the 1960s wing, many of the unit ventilator parts are well over 50 to 60 years old, and it's becoming problematic for the facilities department to even find replacement parts. So we are looking at a more contemporary piece of equipment, and technology's advanced quite a bit in 40 to 50 years. So we're looking at high energy efficient units that will have some type of heat recovery in them and offer more package type heating and cooling within each classroom. Another component of the work has to do with improved security. One of the key components is at the primary entrance, which is now around on the parking lot side or the Farragut Avenue side. We're looking at a slight reconfiguration of the entrance vestibule, relocating some existing doors to create more of a man trap that would allow a visitor to move into the office first to be vetted prior to being allowed to enter the school proper. We're going to be adding some security film to exterior door glazing. It offers a higher level of protection for somebody that might have ill intent to try and break in through a existing door opening by breaking the glass and reaching in. So it buys time for the police to respond. These are sort of common steps now that are being implemented through the school communities. In addition, there's a series of improvements from a technology perspective. making improvements with security cameras from an older analog system that had been sort of piecemeal together to now moving to more of a digital platform. The quality of the cameras have gotten much better. And it also allows the ability to share images from school to school from a central location as well as through the police department. So there's those opportunities now that provides a platform for imagery to be transmitted back and recorded if necessary to multiple central sources, maybe the administrative offices as well as the police. So from a site perspective at Shaner, the improvements that are being proposed are to address some of the deteriorating sidewalk and curbing along 3rd Street. Just for safety reasons, so someone doesn't have a tripping hazard, we're going to add a few more barrier-free accessible curb cuts. There's a maintenance project in the parking in the back to provide a coating. Those types of steps are good investments to prolong the life of paving. We're looking to provide a more accessible route to the various playground equipments, which is a requirement with the American with Disabilities Act as well as the state Uniform Construction Code, so that a student in a wheelchair or a teacher who might be in a wheelchair that would have to escort the students have the ability to take a route of travel around and have access to the playground equipment, which they currently do not. We're looking to install a standby emergency generator for those opportunities which seem to be more frequent these days when the power goes out. So it's another positive move, we think, for the facility. And we're going to implement a sort of a roof restoration program in one of the older sections of the building. Again, to prolong its life, there's new materials available where you can take an existing roof membrane and basically add 10 to 15 years worth of life, avoiding the extra cost of tearing them off. So these are all positive moves, and again, all capital in nature. One other project is to relocate the dumpster from the Duberson side of the street to the Shaner property, which I believe was a common goal between the municipality and the school district, school board. Again, there are a few other small projects. Certainly, I'd be happy to spend more time, if we have time, answering more questions or explaining some of the details.
Can we
Moving
ask
on
que-
to,
Can we
yes.
ask questions now?
Let him have his 15 minutes.
Pardon me?
Let him have his 15 minutes. And we'll-
After he does 15
You can
minutes,
drill him.
Okay.
questions.
Want to open up for questions?
Sure.
Council, if
Yeah, sure.
you'd like to have it at that time, we can open up for any questions.
Well,
is that the end of your presentation?
If it's going to be within that 15-minute timeframe, that works for me, as long as your questions are answered.
Okay.
Well, what are we not getting by doing it this way?
Similar project at Davies and Hess
And
School.
Hess,
Yes.
which is the major part of the program I would propose.
I would like to hear that.
I'd like to hear that also.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so at Hess School, obviously, it's the largest of the 3 schools in the district, so taking on projects there tend to be a little more challenging. It's a bigger economy of scale, if you will. But again, from a technology perspective, improvements with the phone system, implementing additional technology improvements throughout the district within the building. As we look at some of the other building improvements, we're tackling a lot of the original HVAC equipment now, which is coming up to 25, 27 years old. Those pieces of equipment that don't offer tremendous amount of energy improvements are being handled within the referendum as a proposal. As Mr. Vogel may have mentioned, hand in glove with this process is an energy program through the Board of Public Utilities, where a project like replacing the boilers at Hess School tend to produce much higher rates of return because the equipment is that much more efficient. So they're eligible for a different program because the projects can pay for themselves just from the energy savings. So the state allows the school district to view it as just regular operating projects, and the savings, in essence, are paid for by the energy improvements. So that's part of an overall energy plan that the district's doing independently with a different vendor. Other projects at Hess, we're looking at one of the key issues. Those of you that have driven by the school know that there's a material in the building that looks like stucco. It is a product that's called an exterior insulating finishing system, which is a very, very thin product over top of foam, much like what you would make coolers out of, that white expanded polystyrene. Well, this is something we did at the Davies School years ago, where you coat this material to give it longer life. This work at this school was something that should have been done a number of years ago, but just haven't been able to get the resources to do it. So this is a perfect opportunity. So we're basically going to coat all of that material to give it prolonged life, repair any damaged areas. It's another key, I think. Some maintenance around the pool deck, repairing the tile surfaces at the pool deck. The gymnasium floor is now, again, because of its age, beginning to show signs of wear. It's a poured urethane product. It has to be removed and abated during the removal process. That flooring is going to be replaced. As I mentioned, much of the HVAC equipment, same type of security improvements at entranceways, adding the film, and again, cameras and some of those technical improvements. Also to highlight that we're proposing to add this security office immediately adjacent to the front lobby entranceway. We're going to work within the overhang of the second floor, but again, provide a more direct point of control for somebody that accesses the building, can then be allowed to enter in the security office and vetted prior to releasing them to the school. As the district has had incidences of certain individuals who may have blown past the front office trying to get to their child or another parent's child. And lastly, this is, I think, worth highlighting. With regards to the site work, again, these are all capital in nature. There's a large parking lot that services the faculty primarily. It's original construction. It was built directly on compacted sand. And over the years, it's just begun to deteriorate beyond the point of being able to make safe repairs. There's lots of wide cracks, which become tripping hazards. So we're looking at dealing with that parking lot, replacing site lighting, which now can be done with LED fixtures, much more efficient. The smaller walkway bollards around the property are sort of precast concrete that are just deteriorating from age. The water's gotten in and started to blow apart the concrete cylinders. Moving around the back of the school, this is, I think, a very important project for the district, trying to help to improve the segregation of vehicular traffic for parent drop-off pickup versus bus drop-off pickup. And it's just this front lot area. The district's done a terrific job trying to control parents and following the proper protocol for drop-off pickup. But we find that parents tend to want to do that around the facility. And towards the back, it's really become somewhat unsafe. It's a very narrow road that rings the back of the school. There's a guardrail, and there needs to be free flow of bus traffic because, as you know, there's a large quantity of buses that serve the property. So after a number of different options we've explored to create sort of an additional parallel drop-off lane, that's this area in yellow, that'll allow parents to parallel park along the curb line with right side drop-off, some supplemental parking. And this will also serve the after-school care program where students tend to assemble in the cafeteria areas, and it gives parents direct access to come to the back of the school rather than block the drive, which is what's currently happening, and a concern for minor fender benders and things in that back area. Some other improvements, the hard surface play area has gotten to the point it is really hazardous, so the students are not allowed to play on it, nor the community. There's just lots of large cracks. Same type of construction as the parking lot, and we're looking to create more of a multi-purpose type hard play, basketball, tennis, volleyball, with different stanchions that could be changed now. In all three schools, there's a proposal to add a digital sign. We did mention that to the planning board, and as details develop, should the referendum pass, we'll certainly come back to show the planning board what the intent is from the district, final locations and those types of things. And lastly is the Davies School. And without repeating many of the same type projects, same types of issues. Building completed originally, you'll follow this heavy dotted line. This was the original 1987 building that came back here, something like that. And it's mostly replacing the original HVAC equipment that's above the ceiling that services classrooms. Again, these are not the type of units that tend to be energy efficient if they're replaced. They're just improved, certainly, but not to really reduce any energy consumption. Those projects, like replacing the 1987 boilers, are being done through the energy program because, again, there's some immediate payback. Same types of things, security door film being added around the perimeter, upgrading the old 1987 bathrooms, replacing old fixtures, surfaces that have deteriorated over the years, dealing with the original gymnasium, same thing, floor replacement, painting, which is high ceiling painting, requires some scaffolding, so we're going to take advantage of that. Lighting would be replaced, again, under the energy program to get more energy efficient lighting fixtures. So very similar projects. As far as site work there, not quite as developed as Hess. We're looking to add some irrigation from the existing well system. That's an open field towards the back. They have a tremendous amount of athletic field utilization on this site. There's some additional apparatus, equipment that we want to place on the property here to supplement gym and for community use, really. It's exercise circuit. We're going to do some long overdue maintenance in the existing retention basin. It's required under Pinelands to do that periodically, to remove silts and plant materials. That's going to be done. In the upper corner of the parking lot that's closest to Route 40 but screened behind the trees, the proposal includes a pre-engineered storage building that would serve as a central point for deliveries and allows the district to continue to buy products in bulk and then distribute them to the other schools. So we think that's a long overdue project as well. So in a nutshell, that's very similar work at all three schools. There's nothing extravagant. It's all capital in nature.
Well, all right, if it's the time. I had a few questions. One, and I may have asked the superintendent about this before, but with regard to electricity and solar panels, have you investigated the use of solar panels? And
Well, we did a number of years ago. We added a considerable amount of solar, photovoltaic system. Davies has the largest quantity. I think the final number was somewhere close to 235 kW. That's right, we took the extra area. So 265 kW.
Will be providing.
360. And at Shaner and Hess, there was a program that was called a renewable energy program through BPU, and allowed districts to do up to 50 kW. So there's 50 kW at Shaner and Hess. Just as a point of information, I know the district under that energy program was going to explore adding additional panels. And due to some current constraints with the Atlantic City Electric delivery system, the township has been zoned as to which areas of the municipality can actually accept additional solar generation. And unfortunately, both Davies and Hess fall in that zone where there is no additional capacity to allow additional transmission into the system. Shaner is out on the fringe, and that may be an option that may be explored. We did choose at the Shaner School to put the solar panels on the newest section of the school that was all steel construction, steel decking, steel joist, that was towards the back, the 2001 edition. So that would leave the sections of the school that have wood framing. Can't say that it cannot be done. It could be done, but it's a lot more delicate when you do add panels on a roof. You can always explore putting them on the ground. Comes with its own set of challenges, but it may be an option at Shaner.
Well, I think you answered the question. You have seriously considered it,
Yes, sir.
and obviously, we're receiving some savings as a result of it. The other question I had was regarding security and the number of entrances through which people can enter. I know in many cases, they've talked about having a single entrance or maybe not many entrances that are unmonitored. Are we doing that in this?
Well, I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Vogel or Ian, my understanding is that all the major entrances have some type of camera visibility, but the entire buildings are locked down after student arrivals, and anybody visiting the site is directed to a key entranceway, one single entrance point. Hess, obviously, is the biggest challenge. In fact, a number of years ago, we implemented a different type of energy project because we found we can monitor the amount of energy utilization in the morning as the staff arrived, and then as faculty arrived, and then as students arrived, the doors would tend to be thrown open because there used to be up to 40 buses that would deliver students to the property. So the building would basically exfiltrate. They would prop the doors open. So we did implement adding air curtains, which helped tremendously at the time. But once the students arrive, and I believe faculty do stand at those entrances as students come in and around the building, and then the building is locked down.
Well, part of the reason for asking for that is I was recently at the school, and I couldn't get into the main entrance. It was supposed to have been open. It wasn't at the time. So I walked around the side of the building, and, people were exiting, entrancing, and I ended up entering through one of those buildings. So I don't know what you can do about that kind of thing, but that's something to keep in mind.
Sure.
Referendum, both the Shaner School and the Hess School would receive kind of like a fishbowl man trap in the front, which does not exist right now. Once you pop the door to the Hess end or the Shaner School, you have immediate access to everything. That's part of the referendum's proposal, is to harden those facilities as well as some of the other measures that John's talked about.
Just one other question. We talked about savings. These savings, I think what you talked about are primarily associated with the debt servicing. In other words, the elimination of one and then with the new capital debt. But what about operational savings? Does that, obviously, I think we anticipate operational savings. Is that reflected in the savings that you talked about, or will those be additional savings on top of what you talked about?
The energy-related projects that are handled through what's called an ESIP, Energy Savings Investment Plan, as I mentioned, through the Board of Public Utilities, the savings are in essence used as a basis to pay for the implementation of those projects. Now, with things like lighting, they tend to pay off more quickly, and the district will get that prolonged benefit going into the future.
So the operating savings are primarily in the energy area?
Yes, sir.
You don't see many in other areas beside that?
Some minor. We do expect, like the equipment at Shaner, to save. Again, when you take a 50-plus-year-old piece of equipment and replace it with something new, the fact that this one device has the ability to take air, that's one of the biggest challenges, is the quantity of fresh air that has to come in, be conditioned, and then exhausted. Well, the equipment actually is able to capture the energy that's being exhausted, and it basically allows the new air coming in to be tempered. So that's a benefit that you don't have now, and I think there'll be some reflection of that in the school's operations.
I think another piece of information you should know is that Board of Education had the opportunity at the time to present a $25 million bond. The ESIP allowed us actually to take $3 million out, so we leveled it off at 20. $3 million being placed in a $6 million ESIP. So items that were eligible for the bond, we actually took out, which will in turn create savings. So that's $6 million for the total improvements, some of which John explained, we will see and pay for in our operating budget. It's not part of the referendum. So we're using our internal funds, our own budgetary funds to pay for that. Where the $20 million is a lot of what John's been outlining here, infrastructure, things like that, which would not be ESIP related. On that brochure, it delineates the referendum piece, and it also delineates the ESIP piece. Kind of like they're separated, but I thought it's best that we share with everyone the opportunities that are out there, which is why they're included in the brochure.
Thank you.
You have, at Hess, you have over $6 million going into renovating the heating system. What exactly are you doing there? I see you
Again-
have an air handling unit going in on the auditorium, and then you're putting air conditioning in the hallways.
There's air conditioning in the gymnasium that's being proposed, replacing old
And
rooftop.
how are you doing that? Right here, all you're mentioning here is a rooftop unit in the auditorium.
Well,
So you're
that's
putting
exist-
rooftop units in the,
That's existing, and we're replacing it. Again,
okay,
there's
so you're
old-
additional,
Yeah,
you're putting in
gymna-
additional,
The gymnasium's at the complete other end of the building.
I know, I sent 3 kids there.
Right. So this was a request by the board. We've tried to provide that flexibility and add space comforting for large events, which are happening all the time, and I understand occupant discomfort is what's driven that decision. We're adding a piece of equipment on the lower roof, and then either through the ceiling system or through the exterior, going up with an insulated duct system that supplies the space there. But the additional, it's a fairly large number, but we're also dealing with a lot of the original terminal equipment in many of the classrooms. It goes back to 1992, 93.
So you get rid of unit ventilators and replace it.
Replacing them with,
Right.
again, updated units and anything that really didn't have a high rate of return, we kept it in the referendum. Other projects like the boilers, hot water heaters, they're going to do some motor replacements on the air-cooled chiller, which is a big deal. The consultant was actually able to get some return on investment in making a variable frequency drive motor for the cooling tower, which is critical. It cools the entire building. So those types of decisions were vetted very heavily by this ESCO, Energy Savings Company, so.
What's the time frame for this project, assuming you get to the point where it passes?
Sure. Well, hopefully with a positive referendum in October. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done. And we've done work in many, many school districts throughout New Jersey, and it takes some orchestration, there's no question. I did mention to the group earlier today at they had a faculty retreat, administrators retreat at the school, and it's unfortunately cyclical. What Hamilton is being able to do by retiring older debt, the economy being stronger, the state now offering debt service aid, well, other districts are in the same boat as Hamilton. They had to defer capital projects as well. There's a lot of work that's in the pipeline now moving through the fall. Being able to orchestrate the work, 3 months is a very short window during the summer to do the work. And we've discussed strategies of possibly allowing certain work to happen during the school year. If it's done in a way that doesn't disrupt the education, can be done safely. The example I've given is one of our clients is Freehold Regional High School District. They have 6 high school buildings. We did a major energy project similar to one that Mr. Vogel's mentioned. And, you have to look at, with that much real estate, with 200 to 300,000 square feet of space per school, being able to get contractors who are willing to commit to such a hard deadline, if you don't give them the ability to spread work either in a second shift or first shift over time, it's either going to have one of 3 results: very, very high numbers, or not interested in bidding. So we try to encourage the best balance. Children's safety is number 1, always first and foremost. We have to operate a school. He has to educate children. The board has to educate children. But we try and tailor projects that allow things to happen in sequence. If there's disruption, we could do it over teachers' convention break, holiday breaks, and that's how we structure the work. Major shutdowns happen during those periods, terminal work in various classrooms. If we have a floating classroom that can remain vacant, it provides the contractor a lot of incentive. Now he knows that, boy, I not only have my commitment for this summer, but I know that I've got a year's worth of work now, and I could do it at a reasonable pace and first shift. It helps to create that kind of attraction for contractor bidding. So,
I had a question. You still have bidding processes underway, or you have to do bidding on certain
Referendum's got to
aspects?
pass first.
the sequence of operation is, once the public supports this referendum, We begin that process of developing what are called contract bid documents, and then we go out to get competitive bids under the New Jersey School Public Bid Law, 18A. And that work, we would hope to bid in early spring, have in place in late spring, contracts executed, materials on site. Students leave June 20-something, and contractors, yeah.
The reason I
Without snow, maybe a lot earlier.
The reason I asked is I just had, I mean, it looks like the total project cost with soft costs and everything is just under $14 million.
In terms of what the local share may be,
Right.
so that's projecting potential debt service aid from the Department of Education Division of Finance. The school district and board are required to bond the commitment for the entire amount. The state, in their letters, and we've received the letters already from Department of Education, they're called preliminary eligible cost letters. They're making a commitment to the Board of Education that says, if this passes, our commitment is to provide debt service aid over the length of your bond issue. As you make payments, we're going to help you make those payments over time. Because the legislation has to continue to fund that, and they're not going to fund it today. They're going to fund it over subsequent 20 years.
So the amount of the referendum amount is what, the total?
Is the total,
Okay.
yes.
As a point of information, that percent the state is committed to.
I understand.
It's 50.9% of the project. So almost 51%, 51 cents out of every dollar is being funded by the state.
Believe me, this committee's, we've retired over $10 million of debt in the last 10 years.
Yes.
And it's just, the numbers, wow, you know, it's a little bit staggering. But the scope of work, I certainly see where the scope of work is important. But as far as doing the work based upon like A items, and then being life and safety and recommended items, how are you guys going to approach that?
Well, they get implemented, the total scope is being proposed to the community for support, and then we have a requirement to package the work the way that the state law allows it. So, for example, if it's strictly HVAC work that has a minor amount of general construction to it, like you have to take down some ceilings to get out a unit, we can structure the bid package to be an HVAC prime contractor who's the one that contracts with the board, and he would hire a general contractor to support him because it's a de minimis part of the project to take ceilings out and things. And similarly, electrically, we would have an electrical sub because the portion of electrical to HVAC is small. So we would structure that. In contrast, to do, say, the exterior stucco system, and we have some painting to be done, I didn't mention specifically, but a lot of that exposed steel that you see on Babcock Road, that high steel that runs up the side of the auditorium, well, that's not something, unfortunately, that Ian is willing to climb up to the top of a 40-foot ladder to do. So we had to do this, I'm going to say it was almost 15 years ago. We put out a public package and had a painter, as a prime general contractor, get a high lift and paint all that. So, but we can package all the GC things that are just general construction and bid that package. And that can happen simultaneously while the HVAC work is being bid. So we package it based on the best economy of scale to the board and to the community.
I don't know who would answer
have
this
that
question, but you have you're saying there's $130 of savings per household
Is the projected
when the old bond comes off. Is that including the new bond?
Well, what happens is the old bond drops off, the new bond is approved. With the new bond being approved, it's $130 in savings.
But the new bond won't be realized for a year or so. Correct? How could that impact?
The timing is such that the new bond will be in place next year, so it's the way the bond's being structured.
Mm-hmm.
So it shouldn't have, so the impact will be realized in next year.
So it's not going to go down 130 and then go back up? All right.
And
One other question, I just,
Yeah, I would offer,
this always amazes me about, you're having a bond referendum a month before an election. Why can't they be in the same?
Because taking a political election and tying it to the bond referendum isn't what this is about. It's
Yeah,
about
but you get people out.
But you get,
You get enough of a population out to vote in general where you may not get a lot of people for this. So you have a segment. Huh?
I've asked the council, or not council, the clerk to open up every single polling place and give it the most amount of time, whether it's 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. or whatever that is. My letter clearly indicated that. It's not about limiting the vote in regards to people having the opportunity to articulate how they feel at the voting booth. It's trying to separate, which could potentially be a relatively partisan conversation, away from that to going bricks and mortar. That's part of where we are in our conversation. It's important to realize that the things that we're doing here is just outside that context.
Yeah, but there's a cost involved to everything. You know that. There's nothing that's free anymore. The problem that I see is you open up the paper every Monday and we have sheriff's sales in the classified section that run 16, 18 pages. I count them. I've been doing it religiously. And those are people who are walking away from their homes because they can't afford to live in these communities. The rents are extremely expensive all over. So when you look at whether it's your budget or ours or the county budget, you try to be as conservative as you can. Seriously, because it makes a big difference, especially when you have a third-year population in this township that lives on a fixed income. And it's not that they're against school funding, okay? I mean, you want to educate your children, but I'm pleased to see at least you're spending a good amount on safety,
And security.
especially in light of everything that's going on throughout this country, okay? That's going to be money well spent. I mean, the fact that you got to replace a chiller, I mean, you know how to do that. You have a heater, you can do that, but my other concern is, are they going to miss any school days at all because of work that has to be done?
Well, it's my objective always to get 180 in from September 1 to June 30th. How that's structured, my student safety, our student safety is one of our highest priorities.
Yeah, and the other thing, as I mentioned earlier, I'm concerned, and we always like, and people who come back and look at this meeting tonight will get somewhat of a feel for this, because there may be people that'll watch this for next week or the week after, that they'll get some idea of what we're talking about here. But I like the public to have an opportunity somewhere, whether you have a mass meeting at a school or somewhere, to talk to you about it, because there's going to be concerns out there.
Absolutely.
And I don't think we're doing our job if we don't at least do that. So you mentioned, it makes more sense to have the election on a non-electable time of the year because no politics are involved. Hopefully there isn't any politics in schools, but I think there's more politics in school than there is in township committee, okay? And in county government set. So, and I'm familiar with it, so I think that we have to be very careful with this. If you really want to get the information out there so that people understand exactly. I mean, I've gone through this several times, and the figures are staggering.
Yes.
I mean, when we do our capital budget every year, we look at items and we try to plan ahead. We did our chiller, okay? We're getting a new chiller here. But we plan ahead for that. It's unfortunate that there was not enough advanced planning on this, because all of this didn't happen since you came here, Frank.
No.
I mean, this was in the pipeline. I understand that. And I think what we have to do is make sure that our kids are safe, make sure they're getting good education, and they live in a safe environment when they're in school. So, I mean, that's our concern to a large degree also.
And all of those things combined equals to a greater property value in Hamilton.
Oh, I understand.
Value of your schools, not
Rodney brought up a good point when he was talking to you about energy. Was one of our goals here to close our landfill. And I think what's going to happen when the landfill is eventually closed in another year or two, it's going to be 3.5 million megawatt solar put in there, which may be able to provide for whether it's special services, whether it's the vocational school, maybe there'll be some offshoot to Hess. So those are things that are in the pipeline to keep in the back of your mind. So hopefully.
I'd actually like to talk to whoever's planning that for the township. The reason why is we actually on our ESIP can add a significant amount of energy savings vis-a-vis a solar array to both Hess and the Davis. And we've been politely told that we cannot do that because, the lines or, whatever it is, that we can't tap in. You'll have to forgive me that that's not my profession, I'm out of school. But if you're able to do that in those areas and you're able to kind of get to that line that I
Well, that's the incentive. That would be the incentive of putting it in the industrial park there.
I'd be interested in knowing that so we could pop that line open to get the schools
Yeah.
involved there. Because every time we put a solar panel up, not only are we saving energy that we use, we're getting SRECs, which in turn goes right into tax savings. So I would really like to talk to whoever you're working with there to kind of put our collective voices together to get that line to open, to be able to expand on these things.
Maybe,
Very much, Council.
maybe I'm mistaken, but it seems to me during the presentation on the solar fields, I thought they talked about providing electricity to the school system.
They did. They originally wanted to put in 7 million megawatts, but the electric company couldn't handle it. So they cut them back to 3.5 million.
They cut it
Which, as you
back,
probably are aware and have heard that. That's truly unfortunate because the general consensus would be to provide as much energy you can to hold down the cost. So that's the whole goal in trying to approach this subject of energy efficiency.
Glad you mentioned.
So maybe you can contact them and see if there's something that can be done.
Well, we have, actually. Their friendly neighborhood superintendent knocked right on their door. I am not bashful. Not dopey and sleepy, baby, but I am certainly not bashful. And we've done that, and in the hopes of kind of generating that conversation. It's my sense that maybe there'll be some fruit in the future. We'll have some additional conversations, but we're working on that right now.
Hopefully, let's just assume for discussion that everything goes the way you plan. How do you propose going forward not to have this happen again, and how would you be looking at it? Would you look at your capital budget a lot different after this?
Well, it's interesting you say that, Councilman. We actually just replaced last year one of the Hess's hot water heaters inside of our own budget. And for a while, we were running the Hess school on a single hot water heater because, the redundant system, you just couldn't fix it anymore. So it was a couple months, it was probably 5 or 6 months. Every couple days, I called in up because if you don't have hot water in the school, you're not having school that day. And replacing the system took a significant amount of time. John mentioned we'll be replacing the other one, just that one's going to go eventually as well. We're replacing it more energy efficient. What I'm trying to get at is when we can do that, and the opportunity presents itself. Catch-22 is our cost per pupil for students is so efficient. We're like a tenor string on a banjo. That's also the catch-22. So the available dollars in our budget in regards to significant capital projects doesn't exist. It's going towards and into the classroom on the variety of other things outside of replacing a hot water heater. We were compelled to replace that hot water heater because, again, man, that other one goes down. Everyone in the room, you get in the room from me, hi, you're from the neighborhood superintendent. Well, we're going to be closed for 2 weeks to have school out the next day until we get this thing fixed. Thankfully, it worked out, we were able to do that. So just recently, we actually have done, and we would consider doing it in the future, absolutely. But in the final analysis, I think this is a fantastic opportunity for kind of a win-win between the school district and the township as far as the taxpayers, a third of the folks that you represent, and the third of the folks you say that are out there. Tell them to come and see me. I'm happy to go to any venue they would like to have and have that kind of conversation. I'll bring my collective team with me because I do think that dialogue is essential.
One more question.
Several more. I'm here all night.
Supposing the bids come
So
in
am I.
higher than what you projected,
Definitely.
what are you doing?
That's a John Blake's question.
It's always the challenge in planning projects that aren't going to occur for a year and a half. We build contingency in. As we develop the project documents, we try to create alternate scenarios with alternative manufacturers or different approaches or additive scope. That's the only thing you can do to control. And you're at the mercy, unfortunately, of the economy, the bigger economy, of the amount of work that's out there. And I mentioned to the group earlier, I was going to say, it's probably about 5 years ago, we hit this bubble of mechanical and electrical work in the lower part of New Jersey. You couldn't even get contractors to bid it. And we were getting people coming all the way from North Jersey. That's great, but their numbers 2 and 3 times what the actual scope of work was. You have to work the problem. Now, if I had a better insight, I'd be sitting in Atlantic City all day at
Casinos?
So you use your best professional judgment, you follow trends, you try to plan ahead, and you just work very diligently with your team to stay on top and get the best value for the community. Best you can do.
I have a question about one of these items for the Davies School. It says replace floor and wall ceramic tile. Are you saying the floor throughout the facility?
The original high school, those two combined.
7 gang bathrooms and then the original locker rooms. And it's not, the process it allows, basically you tile on top of tile. American Tile Council actually has a procedure that you can follow that allows you to basically apply new tile over old tile that might be cracked or distressed. You can, surface it. It works very well. We've done a couple of the older 1950 bathrooms at Sheener, turned out very nice. And it just helps with if you have floors that are cracked and distressed, it's difficult to keep them clean and sanitary. So, again, we look at ways that technology allows you to use different adhesives now, different types of grout. So it's only in the 1987 gang bathrooms and the original locker rooms that need some attention.
Another question about the requirements of the Pinelands. You said that you're going to renovate the basins, and what is your perspective on that? I mean, we've had a lot of problems with them, so.
Right, well, in the original approval for the work, say it was 2005, 2006 or so, when we did the major addition to the Davis School. In the final Pinelands approval letter, it says that the school is. So, our expectation is we're just following the protocol that they set forth. Basically, it's removal of plant material, replacement of the bottom sands with material that allow for better infiltration into the aquifer.
It's a lot, very difficult. I mean, we've experienced this with our baseball fields, we've experienced this all over with Tavistock not being able to,
It's gone a little bit the other direction. We're doing the project in Malta right now. It's not anything of experience.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the price is here, but you might not
Frank,
be able
let
to do it within
me
that
ask you a
price.
question. What's going to happen to Duberson? Is that on the burner to get warm one of these days? We probably get asked that question more than you do.
Let me share this with you. When I first got here 2 years ago, I had an opportunity to walk through Duberson. I'd never been in the facility before, back where we were there, and walked us around, flashlights in hand. We probably should have had hard hats, unfortunately. So just getting into that beautiful auditorium, I mean, just the chandelier, it's just gorgeous. The catch-22, I mean, I'm not an architect by any stretch of the imagination, although every now and then.
He knows. He went there.
At least I try to think so. Anyway.
It was an impressive school in its
It was.
time.
It's a beautiful place.
It's a shame that they left the roof open and didn't protect it, okay?
Absolutely. Or no ventilation.
I mean, when you look at that building, it exudes strength. And it certainly has a place here, and, but I don't get tired of being asked a question. I just hope that sooner or later, a decision is reached so that it can either be put to rest or resurrected.
Well, whose decision is that? Is that yours?
Well, I still source for the Board of Education, Eric Aiken, the president. But we have actively talked and actively explored options every now and again. Probably about every 4 or 5 months, I guess, we get a call from an organization or an individual, and they're expressing interest. I think Ian's probably given more tours to.
I've been in there.
Yeah,
And
it's
you can
full
shake
mold.
that. But really, I mean, we're open for that type of conversation. Really, it's preserving that austere structure, the architecture is there. It's fantastic. The final analysis is beyond a point of repair.
Well, we've dealt previously with the previous administrator, school board administrator, and the board, and Roger's absolutely right. We requested many times for him to board up the leaks that happen and get some ventilation going through the building. Otherwise, you have what you call demolition by neglect, and the building will end up collapsing down on itself, and nobody's going to get to use it or propose a use for it because it wasn't protected. And that's very unfortunate that the board didn't go along with our recommendations, and it's not always about the money. It wouldn't have been that expensive to deal with fixing a major leak in the roof that leaked down through the building, and also some type of ventilation, so there'd be cross ventilation through there to hold the mold situation down, you know?
And we were always open for a conversation, or say outside entities that want to talk about restoring or uplifting that facility in any way. I've taken many calls in regards to that.
Right.
Well, what does it take to make a decision? I mean, this is going on yes, this is going on for years. We probably ought to bring it to a close.
Well,
What are you, can I? All right, let's speak. What are you asking us to do? Are you asking the Board of Education to look at shoring it up, running ventilation in there?
I'm certainly not asking to shore it up. I'm asking what it would take. What is the process we need to go through to make a decision? And that decision could be whatever it is, but we need to do that because it's just sitting there deteriorating and it's not going to get any better.
We all are aware of that. But again, it comes down to, in my eyes, money. You might say it's not. It's going to cost umpteen thousands of dollars to fix the roof on there.
I agree with you.
Umpteen thousand dollars to put ventilation in there, to where we can utilize that money elsewhere in the district. And mind you, I went to that school. You know, it's a beautiful school. It isn't something that we don't talk about anymore. We do, but more of our focus is on our buildings that we utilize now. You know, I get what you're saying. It's to me, it's money, like I said.
Well, of course it's money, and that's why you come up with a process for making a decision on how much you want to spend, if any. But we need to put that, I would think, to bed. It's just sitting there deteriorating. This has been going on now for what, 20-plus years?
Yes, it's been a long time.
I would suggest putting a process into place and soliciting whatever inputs you can from the township and any place else and just making a decision.
so I think we went over our 15 minutes.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, I am grateful to have the opportunity to come tonight with my team and have a conversation with you about something which is critical to the infrastructure of the Hamilton Township Public School. On behalf of the Board of Education, on behalf of the employees, and myself personally, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for coming here.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And October 2nd, make sure you hit those polls. Be well.
They should still.
I could go on forever. Why didn't they make them $1,000 to fix it, put some kind of fan?
Okay, item number one, additions or deletions of late agenda items and considered for action tonight. I don't believe we have any.
No.
Early public comment on agenda items, excluding items listed for public hearings. Michael?
The first person signed up is Steven Scherzer,
Yes, that's me, thank you.
7G.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, Jacob, Mr. Sandman, Mr. Flue, Rita. My name's Steve Scherzer, I'm an attorney with the Cooper Levinson Law
Can you
Firm.
speak into the microphone, please? So she
My
can
name's
pick you
Steve
up?
Scherzer, I'm an attorney with the Cooper Levinson Law Firm. I represent Timber Glen Condominium Association.
Okay.
That's 238 units. We've had a whale of a time with the developer over the past several years concerning a number of infrastructure issues, most especially Timber Glen Drive. It's in awful shape. There's been promises made by the developer, promises broken. Eventually, we had to sue the developer, and we're now actively involved in litigation against the developer. A couple weeks ago, we were told that there was a bond release coming up. I spoke with Rita, I spoke with Mr. Sandman. I asked them to ask you to respectfully table that for 2 weeks so that I can get an engineering report. That was done, it was tabled. I asked for an engineering report. We received that just this morning, About 5 minutes after I received it, I sent it to Rita and I sent it to Bob, and I think Steve has seen it as well, in which we're respectfully asking that the bond not be released. Now, before the meeting started, I had the occasion to speak with Steve. It was a good discussion. I understand there is some issue as to whether or not the bond that's being released covers this phase, because I think it's the engineer's recommendation that it does not cover this phase, and therefore the phase that was completed is in good shape. But I would respectfully ask the board to do two things. So long as you're within the time frame, and I think Bob can speak to that better than I can, I would ask that you put this off for another 2 weeks so the engineers can speak, my engineer, Steve, and perhaps the engineer for the developer, because I sent him my engineer's report, to see what phase has been done and what has not been done. And respectfully, whatever this board can do with us and for us with the developer to get Timber Glen Drive fixed, we would greatly appreciate. I'm not sure if Rita's made a copy of the engineer's report that we prepared for you, but that engineer's report has a plethora of pictures showing what is the condition of Timber Glen Drive. And the pictures show it's pretty terrible. And the recommendation is that it's not just a cosmetic problem, it's a major problem. And my folks have been living with this for years, and whatever help we can get from you would be most appreciated.
Bob, you want to comment on this? Obviously, you know a little bit more about this than
I
we
do. Steve, I know you got it last minute from me, but have you had an opportunity to look at the report?
I read the report in its entirety today.
And is it your opinion, based upon that, that the comments of that report do not affect Phase 4?
That's correct. The report is only Phase 1 and Phase 2, the first two phases of the project. The request that came to me was to do an inspection for Phase 4.
So, and the bond that's at issue is specifically for Phase 4. The reason you can't do, in my opinion, what council is asking you to do is that under the Municipal Land Use Act, specifically Section 4055D-53E2, once the obligor makes a request to release the bond, the municipal engineer has a statutory duty to do an inspection and author a report, and that report has to be submitted 45 days after the request. Once that report is submitted, the committee has to take action within 45 days of the submission of the report. In this particular case, the request for the release of the bond by the obligor was done on April 24th, 2018, which made the engineer's 45-day review due June 8th. The initial review was done by Mr. Philippone's firm on June 5th and submitted, and it recommended that you do not release it because there were two open items. The developer/obligor apparently completed those items. A subsequent inspection was done by Mr. Philippone on June 26th, and he authored a report on that date. So the 45-day period in which you have to act is July 21st. So there's no meeting between now and that date. The law on this is very clear as well. Even though it says that the engineer is providing a recommendation, you have the right to accept the recommendation or not. And in this case, the engineer said it was done, Phase 4 was done to his satisfaction. But in the case of Hovnanian versus Township of Lawrence, the court made clear that the only way you could not accept the engineer's recommendation is if it was rebutted by sufficient evidence to the contrary. So you're up against a timeline here. And the evidence which counsel has submitted, unbeknownst to him, through his engineering firm, does not affect what our engineer reviewed into Phase 4. So you do not have competent evidence to the contrary that would warrant not following the recommendations of the engineer.
Although that is a Law Division case in 1988, it was upheld by in an unpublished opinion of the Appellate Division in 1912 in the matter... 2012. That would have been good, 1912.
I'd say.
In the matter of Friendship, Inc. versus Township of East Hanover. So that is the law. There is also a consequence involved. Under the Municipal Land Use Act, it provides for a summary proceeding by the obligor, who in this case would be the developer, and it provides that the court could award attorney's fees and costs against the township. So you're up against a time, you're up against a potential remedy which would cost you not just fees and costs from me, but fees and costs potentially in a fee-shifting arrangement. So my advice to you is that there is not capable, competent, contrary evidence to the recommendations of our engineer upon which you could base a denial of his recommendation. And that's my opinion.
Mr. Mayor, I understand, and I appreciate you spending the time with us. Anything you can do to help us, however, to gain a repair of Timber Glen Drive would be most appreciated.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Can I ask whether Phase 4 has anything to do with the basins? Was that part of Phase 1 and 2, or?
Phase 4, the basins are not part of Phase 4. It's another phase of the project.
Yeah, the problem we're having are threefold. We're having problems with the sign, we're having problems with the pump station, and most importantly, we're having problems with Timber Glen Drive. And that's the essence of the litigation.
The other thing I would just point out is that I don't remember, but I spoke to Jane Bash in the clerk's office, our deputy clerk, and there have been previous reductions in the bonds at this development, and I didn't look into it because I didn't have the time, because this came on today, this afternoon, but I'm going to guess that they related to phases 1, 2, and 3.
That's my guess, but I'm going to double back with Rita after tonight's meeting to gain some sort of a history, because if there's any bonds that have not been released on Phase 1 and 2, that would give me an opportunity to ask the board for some help and maybe make an application to the bonding company.
Procedurally, you have extended a courtesy to Mr. Scherzer, which I agree should have been extended. And it goes beyond what's usually allowed in early public comment. But you can't vote on it until it comes up as an agenda item.
I understand.
Because people may come in late and want to hear about it.
I understand. If the board would be so kind, I'd like to enter my disappearance. Thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you for your courtesies.
Mike?
David Blood, doesn't have an agenda, at HTPD, I think.
Tavistock.
I'm Jocelyn.
Oh, yeah, okay, you're Jocelyn.
Okay, I'm Jocelyn Blood. I live at 154 Marucci Place, Tavistock.
I'm David Blood, and interestingly enough, I also live at 154 Marucci Place in Tavistock.
We're here to offer our comments and our observations about the Hamilton Township Police Department, and it's all good. We moved here 2006. Shortly after, we took a vacation, and we requested the police to watch out for our place. One morning, I'm in my kitchen, and I see somebody walking around, and it's one of Hamilton Township police officers just checking around. And I asked him what he was doing, and he said, "I'm familiarizing myself with your place." I was impressed. I really was very impressed. I've seen the officers cycle around our community. I've seen them ride around our community, and they're very, very involved, and I'm impressed.
One thing, too, that we want to mention, about a year ago in August, we had a car problem on Route 50. So we pulled off just south of the 322 overpass, and we're sitting there waiting for the tow to come through AAA. Their 45 minutes was a little bit longer than we thought. In the meantime, while we're sitting there, a Hamilton Township police car pulls up behind us. Young woman gets out, comes up very, very, very professionally, introduces herself. Her name is Sergeant Nicole Nelson, and asks us if everything is okay. And we said, fine. We explained why we're there. And we can understand the trepidation that a police officer would have in approaching any car in today's events. She wanted to make sure we were okay, asked if there's anything we needed. We said, no, friends are coming, that you're going to help us out. The car was going to be towed to Neville's. And the reason we know the date this happened is because I checked back on the bill for the repair, and it was August 20th, 2017, somewhere around 1 or 2 in the afternoon. The nice thing is, in talking to Sergeant Nelson, we found out we actually had met her before, going back to what Josh said about community policing. Our dog was out taking us for a walk one night, and she pulled up and said hello. She was patrolling the Tavistock. So see, we are from Tavistock. This does have nothing else to do with Tavistock except the fact that in chatting, it turned out she was admiring our dog. We were talking to her about her dog. Her police dog was in the car with her. And we had a really nice, positive conversation with her. We've only had a couple other interactions with the police department here in Hamilton Township, and each of them, from the time we've come here, has been positive. We believe that you have a very professional police department here, and we're comfortable living here because of that. And we also believe, as Josh will point out, it starts at the top with the people who run this community, along with, I don't know, is police chief here?
Yes.
From his leadership all the way down. But we wanted to make sure this was known, and we wanted to especially compliment Sergeant Nelson for the behaviors that we experienced on the incident where we needed assistance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If we have to leave, we have a cat at home that has to have a shot.
We definitely concur your thoughts. We
Yeah,
think
we have a great police department.
we don't really do anything. Chief Tapner does a great job
Don't
running our
forget on
police
August the
department.
7th, National Night Out over at the mall.
Yeah, it's going to be really
You'll
good.
see all the police there.
Well, we come from a community where we knew most of the police. We had half of them in school. So it's nice to know that coming to a new community, we have the same type of respect and professionalism in the police department here. Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Positive.
You can share this video to, oh, yeah. There'll be no living with them. Michael?
That's all.
That's it? Oh, exciting. Okay, we'll move on to number 3, discussions, formal actions may be taken. A, referral of a resolution to the planning board designating the entirety of Hamilton Township to be an area of need of rehabilitation as required by New Jersey NJSA 40A 12A-14. Phil, you want to speak on that a little bit so everybody understands what all that means?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you, Mayor. Members will recall at the June 18th meeting, you authorized EDA to prepare a rehabilitation study for the entire township. This is the next step in the process, is the referral of the resolution to the planning board. I know Kara Tatulian from Steve's office is working feverishly to complete the rehabilitation report. We anticipated going to the planning board for their review and recommendation at the August 2nd meeting. So again, this is just the next step in the process to get this moving forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
In any way, shape, or form, is this going to reduce or increase the revenues that Hamilton Township collects?
Designating an area in need of rehabilitation is not going to make any changes at all. It's, again, as Mr. Maley explained, does two things. One, it would allow the township to adopt a redevelopment plan or redevelopment plans for areas or specific sites to encourage their revitalization, and it also would allow you to amend your tax abatement ordinance to include this area with the specific type of improvements that would be eligible for abatement or exemption to be determined by committee as part of that ordinance. And then the third thing is somebody would actually have to come in and do the work and make application to committee for any financial changes would take place.
And in the long term, hopefully it would bring in money because it would encourage
Yes, it would.
people
I
to
mean,
make improvements.
Just the fact
and-
you're encouraging the improvements increases the value of the community.
And I just think and I just want to reiterate that this is just the first step.
Correct.
That all the nuts and bolts of this are yet to come
Correct.
as we move forward with this, as far as what it affects and how it affects it, and what's available to somebody who may want to develop in this township.
Correct.
So,
Would this be something that we would advertise?
The resolution itself, no, it's not required to be advertised. It's referred to the planning board for consistency with the master plan and is consistent and something the township wants to do. Any redevelopment plan, or again, you can have multiple redevelopment plans in a rehabilitation area, would require advertisement, public hearing, because then you're dealing with an ordinance situation.
any other questions? You want to take action?
Yeah, I move that we refer this resolution to the planning board.
Second?
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. Rita, why don't we do a roll call vote on that?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you.
B, resolution to designate portions of blocks 1028.02, 1132.01, 1134, 1135.01, 1317, 1318, 1319, 1319.01, 1320, 1321, 1323, and 1324 to be an area in need of rehabilitation pursuant to NJSA 40A 12A-14. Phil?
Mr. Mayor, again, going back to the June 18th meeting, at that time, the committee authorized the planning board to make a recommendation of a proposed resolution. This is the commercial corridor along the Black Horse Pike from Egg Harbor Township to slightly past Cologne Avenue. Planning board had their review of this at the July 5th meeting and adopted a resolution recommending the rehabilitation area. Again, this is just step 2 of the process.
Okay.
Just designates the area. From here, we are required to forward a copy to the Department of Community Affairs for recognition that it meets the criteria and can be designated and is a rehabilitation area. And that would allow, in going forward, development of redevelopment plan and possible amendment of the abatement ordinance.
So the next step would be to set the criteria
Correct.
once this is finished?
Correct.
Okay.
What was the basis for choosing these said areas?
It's called picking low-hanging fruit, Mrs. Link. In looking at it, you have, first off, it's the primary commercial area of the township, an area we definitely want to encourage investment. And just in looking at the area itself and aerial photographs, it was clear to me, as the person that wrote the report that was submitted to the planning board, that you had at least one of the criteria of qualifying as an area in need of rehabilitation is that there was a pattern of vacancy and an underutilization of property. Almost 49% of the property out there now is assessed as vacant property. In addition, you've got several commercial structures that have been vacant for a while, and most notably, at the end of last month, we now had Toys R Us added to that list. So you're looking roughly 50% of the property out there. You know, again, all we have is the ground that's being taxed. We're not getting any improvement out of it. So it's made this fairly easy.
Yeah. Looking at the map, does that include Hamilton Mall?
Pardon? Yes, it does include Hamilton Mall.
Yes.
And even including Hamilton Mall and Consumer Square and Hamilton Commons, we still approach 50% of the unimproved ground.
And the planning board did have, the members had a lot of questions for the attorney that was present, who we have a representative from their office here tonight also, Emily. So we all had agreed to move that forward with the recommendation.
I don't think a lot of people realize, you know, when you use the numbers, the 49%. You know, if you drive down that road, you ride by and you think, wow, look at all these stores and the development that's there. But when you look at the aerial view, you see how much is not developed. And you talk about Toys R Us. Toys R Us owns the building that's attached to it, which used to be Office Depot. How long's that been empty? Long time.
Permanent occupancy has been about, say,
So it's
7 or 8
almost like
years.
you didn't notice Office Depot wasn't there anymore because Toys R Us was. And now that Toys R Us isn't, it's, oh, there's 2 buildings here that are empty. And there's also another lot next door to it that is developable. And because we only see what we can see. And, you know, you look at some of these, and I've spoke at other meetings about the old Zavers property, which has been vacant since I was a kid. So, and that was only a few years ago, by the way. So that's what you don't, you know, you don't see those things. You don't see the restaurant that's across the street from the racetrack that used to flourish, and now it just sits there.
Clubhouse.
So, yeah, so these are the things that we're looking to get rid of, make better, and this more so than the other one, I think will be a more of an impact on our tax base as a whole. So I think it's very positive direction we're heading. We just need to finalize it, that's all.
Phil, when you talk about Toys R Us, okay, and someone taking it over, the improvements that they put into that building would be considered rehab? Or how would that work?
Again, if you amend the abatement ordinance to incorporate this area and allow for commercial abatements or exemption, it would have to be something that would materially improve the value of the property or value of the building itself. I mean, just, you know, cosmetic stuff and maintenance would not qualify, but they'd really have to do some significant upgrades, I think, for that structure to qualify for some form of tax abatement. Now, if they came in and built on the, you know, the vacant piece at the end, you know, again, to the south side of the former Office Depot building, clearly you're dealing with new construction. That's something that, you know, would be eligible, yes.
Just wondering.
Yeah, I know, I saw. Formal action can be taken, is anybody?
I'll move the resolution to designate portions of the blocks that the mayor mentioned to be an area in need of rehabilitation.
I'll second it.
There a motion, a second. Rita, can we get a roll call vote for this, please?
Yes, Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Schenker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you, Phil. Number 4, public hearing and adoption of ordinances. A, ordinance 1878, 2018, an ordinance amending Section 3 of Chapter 169, Code of Township of Hamilton, providing for the discharge of firearms. This is open for a public hearing. Mike, you want to say a little something about it first before we have everybody run to the microphone?
We received a complaint from a neighbor to this property that the shooting that was going on was impacting his home, that bullets were going by his house, and asked us to do something about it. If you approve this ordinance, we'll post the property.
Thank you, Mike. It's open to a public. Anybody like to speak?
Move to close the public portion.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close public portion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I'll move ordinance 1878, 2018, an ordinance amending section 3 of chapter 169.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. We need a roll call for this, Bob?
Yes.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carry.
B, ordinance 1879, 2018, an ordinance amending the Chapter 203, Land Use and Development of the Code of the Township of Hamilton, amendments to performance and maintenance guarantee and to the Pinelands Comprehensive Plan. Mike, you want to, or Phil? I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, this ordinance combines changes or incorporates changes to the municipal land use law dealing with the performance guarantee and maintenance guarantee requirements for developments. Steve Philippone prepared that section of it, which had been reviewed by the planning board back in late April.
Yeah.
And recommended for approval. The second part of it came up shortly thereafter. The Pinelands Commission provided notice that, based on several amendments to the Pinelands Comprehensive Management Plan, of the need to make changes to maintain consistency with their standards. These are primarily procedural items from the Pinelands Commission and requirements dealing with applications to that entity or implementation of their specific program requirements. None of the changes proposed by the Pinelands Commission or required by the Commission affect our local zoning districts or designation. It's more, these things are exempt from Pinelands application. If you make application to the Pinelands, this is the way you can provide notice, things of that nature.
Thank you, Phil. I want to open this up to public. Does anybody like to speak?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
A motion and a second to close public portion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion to approve, to adopt ordinance 1880-2018.
Second.
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 It's 1879. 1879, 2000.
Yes.
So,
1879-2018.
you meant to talk about this?
All right, come on up. Mhm.
I'll withdraw, I'll withdraw
can't do
my,
this, can I?
I'll withdraw my motion while we
Yeah.
hear from the public.
Who seconded the motion?
Rodney, did you second it?
One of us did it,
One of us did,
Yeah.
right.
Whoever
It's
did
Roger
it, the
and
second
John.
is withdrawn, the motion's withdrawn.
Yeah,
Yes.
And
we
you're
all are.
reopening public comment. for the-
Reopening public comment.
I hope we didn't put you to sleep.
No, I don't know. Thank you. And I'm not, holy cow, I'm not objecting, I can't object to passage of this act or ordinance.
Sir, what is your name, sir?
I'm sorry, Paul Rage. And I'm agreeing you have to pass this bill. I just think that we've all been snookered by the Builders Association. Do you realize, Phil said it's little changes to the bonding ordinance. You cannot, and this says so, the key word is you can do your performance bonds only for things that we dedicated to the township. For instance, I understand Horizon Woods Landing has been on your agenda because of the stuff. So you could not bond from henceforth anything in our development that's not going to be dedicated to the township. Supermarkets, can't bond anything other than what's going to be dedicated. So those other, I just think it's, I'm on the Legislative Action Committee of the Community Associations Institute. We let this get by us. I think the League of Municipalities did too. It passed the Senate and the House unanimously, took about 2 months to get it passed. I just think it's going to be a terrible thing for developments in the future, that you cannot bond anything that's not going to be dedicated. And is the builder going to bond it himself? Homeowners associations aren't up at the time. I just, am I reading it right?
Yeah.
Right?
I'd like to talk about it a little bit.
Sure.
Just if I can give the committee just a general observation, this was the change to the municipal land use law, and it came about the last couple of days that Christie was in office, so our hands are tied. We had to update our ordinance, we have to do that to stay in compliance, but just to kind of generalize the statement that you made, if a developer comes in and builds a shopping center, we cannot ask for a performance bond for the improvements, the paving and the curbing and the sidewalk internal that he's going to eventually own. But instead of that one performance bond, there's going to be 2 smaller bonds on that project. One is going to be for restoration in case he starts and stops, and that's a formula, and it's not a lot of money, but it's there. And the other bonding requirement on the performance bond is buffer landscaping. Somehow, and we think it came about in North Jersey when they wrote this, that there must be a lot of concerns about the borderline of a project to existing neighborhoods. So there's going to be 2 small performance bonds. When those 2 bonds are about to be released and all of the site work is completed, it's going to go to a maintenance bond. And the one good thing about that maintenance bond is that's when we're going to capture stormwater basins. So stormwater basins will be captured under maintenance bonds. So as far as public projects, if a subdivision, municipal improvements are going in, there's no changes. So that's just a general oversight of the change. But our hands were tied. We have to bring our ordinance up to the municipal land use law. All right.
Mr. Rage, I had the same question when I first saw this, and I asked how it came about, and the answer was the pressure from the builders and the contractors. It's probably something that should be looked at again by a legislator.
Community Association Institute is working with the builders to try and at least let residential be brought back into bonding capability. And so when you come to the League of Municipalities this fall, you'll see us there giving that.
Making that point.
All right. Anyhow, thank you. I mean, it's got to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the information, Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Anybody else would like to comment?
Move to close public comment.
Second.
A motion and a second to close public comment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
And again, I'll move the ordinance 1879, 2018.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and second. Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
I guess we have to. Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
C, ordinance 1880, 2018, an ordinance amending Exhibit A, Section 1, Article 2 of Chapter 66 of the Township of Hamilton, providing for the maximum salary of employees, executive assistant to the chief of police. Mike?
Yes, Mayor. If approved, this ordinance will allow for a salary up to $55,000. Currently, it's limited to $50,000.
Gotcha.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Anybody like to speak?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
A motion and second to close the public portion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All the opposed, ayes have it.
I'd like to move to approve
I'll second it.
ordinance 1880-2018.
We have a motion and a second. Rita, could we get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Silva? Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
We move on to D, ordinance 1881, 2018, an ordinance establishing speed limits for the entire length of Kate's Road situated in the Township of Hamilton. That pretty much speaks for itself.
Yes, the road is already posted 25.
Right.
The ordinance is
Electronic
35,
signs
so
out
we're
there.
making the ordinance.
If we pass this, they can
25.
enforce it.
Yes.
Stacy's got his cars running, they're ready to go. This is a public hearing. Anybody like to speak from the public? Yes, sir.
I'm John Mazzaka, I live on 1890 Cakes Road. There's signs out there now are 35. I assume that when it passes, we're going to change all the signs to 25.
Oh, definitely. I thought it was posted 25 already.
There's like 7 signs there that say 35 still.
They'll change.
They're already changed.
They have the electric signs up, thank you.
Yes, notify everybody.
We have people going down there 45 miles an hour all the time. Thank you.
Very
you.
welcome.
Our pleasure.
I guess we couldn't have electronic signs saying 25 until this ordinance is passed. Is that not correct?
No, but it alerted them.
Some of it's already posted.
Yeah, the sign said it was going to be
Yep.
reduced.
Advance warning.
Yes,
Okay.
very good.
Thank you.
Move to close the public portion.
Second?
Our motion is second to close the public portion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it.
I move ordinance 1881, 2018.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Rita, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
Thank you. E, ordinance 1882, 2018, an ordinance to vacation, I just got off of vacation. An ordinance to vacate a portion of Memory Lane, a public street situated in the Township of Hamilton, and to release and relinquish the public rights therein. This is, Mike, I guess that's pretty much self-explanatory, too?
Yeah, it's a paper street.
Okay.
It's out in the
not
old,
being used.
Sunshine
Park.
Park.
yeah, Sunshine Park area, yeah.
So many
Just
people are
for,
familiar with that place.
Supplementation, the ordinance was adopted, or was introduced, and I did not have the meets and bounds at the time. And so I added the language that annexed here to is Exhibit A, and incorporated herein is the meets and bounds designation. That does not materially alter the introduction, so you can adopt it anyway.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Anybody in the public like to speak?
Move to close the public portion.
Second?
Your motion is second to close the public portion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it.
I move ordinance 1882, 2018.
Second?
We have a motion and second. Rita, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
Introduction of ordinance, none. Number 6, award of bids and contracts and change orders. A, resolution authorizing the purchase of one Dodge Charger from Hertridge Fleet Services under state contract A88-729, not to exceed $25,000. Source of the fund, New Jersey Highway Safety Safe Corridor Grant Funds.
Grants.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Rita, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Number 7, consent agenda. I accept all of them. I'd like to pull G out if we could.
G?
We already
It's
discussed
the one we spoke of earlier.
Sure.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
for A through H with the exclusion of G, correct, Judy?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. G, a resolution authorizing release of performance guarantee from JSM at Timber Glen Phase 4 in the amount of $671,922.62. International Fidelity Insurance Company Bond Number 0350951, as recommended by the Township Engineer, Steve Philippone, in his correspondence dated 6/26/18.
I'll make a motion to approve that resolution based upon the information we got from our solicitor and the engineer.
I'll second it.
The motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Number 8, personnel, a resolution authorizing an increase of salary for Lee Brower to $52,000 annually, effective April 1st, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rita, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Mr. Gishar.
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mrs. Link.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mayor Shanker.
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. 9, approvals. A, minutes of July 2nd, 2018, regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. B, payroll and bills, bill list total $1,492,934.47.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rita, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard.
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mrs. Link.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mayor Shanker.
Yes,
All yes and carried.
thank you. Reports, Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Mayor, just one thing I wanted to mention. I've sent out documents as they've come in. We still don't have a tax rate. We can't send out our tax bills yet. If we can't get them sent out by the end of the month, we're going to have to use tax anticipation notes to pay the bills, because we still have to pay the schools and the county
Right.
and our other bills.
Is
So
there any word,
they've given the school districts till the end of this week to amend their budgets to either spend the money or use it as tax relief. So they'll have this week, and then we'll get into next week, but they have to get them all. And if one
so
school
before
district's
our
late,
next meeting, you have to,
we'll have to
have to do
move,
something.
start the process of getting the tax.
But every other municipality in the county is facing the same issue.
They're all, you
right?
should see all the emails that are going to the
I
state,
bet.
yeah.
We're getting,
Yeah.
we're getting
It's-
people asking us about it also.
Yeah.
It's all over the state now.
some people think they don't have to pay their taxes this year.
They think they're going to be stuck with all that money, you know?
I just wanted you to be aware of it.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, Mr. Solicitor.
Nothing to report.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Engineer.
Yeah, Mayor and Committee, I just have a few items. The first item on my report is the stormwater training. If we could kind of put that aside for a little while. The link that I've represented is not really working to, it's
I know,
not
I
the
tried
site that the
going
state
on it.
wants us to go to. Stephen Boyer at the state is having some difficulties, and where it worked 3 weeks ago, it has not worked recently. So if we could kind of table that until next meeting, and I'm going to get this worked out with Mr. Boyer.
Okay.
Second item is my road program. I'm continuing to work on that. I'm wrapping that up, and I hope to get that out to bid pretty soon. Third item is the planning board application for St. Paul Coptic Church was deemed incomplete a week and a half ago. The applicant had not received permission to construct his project over top of some South Jersey Transportation Authority easements. That coupled with the fact that he's required to do a traffic study for the project, it was deemed incomplete. It will not be on the agenda for this coming Thursday night's planning board meeting, so we're waiting to hear what the status of that application.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have much community feedback on that? I'm just curious, because I know there was previous. Did you have much community feedback on that? Community participation on that?
We actually had more people there at that planning board meeting to support the project
To support it?
than to actually be against it. But it was the right thing to do, what we did, because with the South Jersey Transportation Authority having an easement right at that property, they needed to show proofs that that was squared away, I believe. Yeah.
That's accurate, yes.
Okay.
Next item is, I just want to report on 3 construction projects. Buffalo Pike Gravelly Run is moving ahead nicely. If you happen to drive by or look at it, the site is now finally up to the grade. The final rough grades are there. The Renaissance Drive all that fill is taken all the way out to Volunteer Way. They're going to start curbing and piping. I spoke to Matt Oates, the construction manager for Buffalo Pike, on Friday morning. He still won't tell me who else is coming in other than the Starbucks and the mattress store. He says as soon as he has signed contracts, he will let us know. He tells me he's on schedule for like a late October, early November opening of the first pad site. Palmer Liquor Store, which is the Guy Tunney property next to McDonald's, they'll be paving that parking lot on Wednesday. So we look for an opening of that pretty soon.
It's a good-looking building.
It is. And Outback Steakhouse, I spoke to them today. They want to have a pre-construction meeting on August the 8th, is the best they could do. They have their approvals in hand, but, I'm trying to get them to move along with this project. August 8th, they'll have a pre-construction, so in the month of August, they'll get started on Outback Steakhouse.
And if I'm correct, if from the planning board meeting, that access to that Outback was granted through the Pike, right off of the Pike, without them having to go into the shopping plaza.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
What the planning board required in the deceleration lane, they will be constructing it
Yeah,
exactly
that was
as
what we
requested
based it
by
on,
the-
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
good.
very good.
And I know you initially had some issues with the liquor store, the new liquor store. I guess those have been resolved?
Well, the problems I was having, if their approvals showed some asphalt widening on the site, they never intended to remove the asphalt that was there. But during construction, it's such a tight site, they destroyed the asphalt with the construction and the storage of all the materials. So I've had a number of letters and conversations and meetings, and they peeled up all the asphalt last week, and I have them placing, asphalt down. It's the right way to do it, and
Right.
it took a little bit of effort, but they're going to put a new parking lot in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Next item, I just want to report that I'm working on the bid package for the chiller, and that'll go out to bid in about 2 weeks. Next item, temporary road, street opening permits, I processed 6 of those. And something that I wanted to mention to committee, the Eaglesmere Volunteer Way where that road was realigned, there's still 2 neighbors that have not given their consent, not that they're objecting to the acceptance of the old the right-of-way that we're going to dedicate to them. There's a little bit of a language difficulty between the committee and these 2 homeowners, so they've written a number of letters, and they're sending some committee people, homeowners association people over to speak to those 2 neighbors. In the meantime, I have the legal descriptions all ready to go, so once I receive the verbal acceptance of those 2 homeowners from the association, I'll submit the legal descriptions for those proposed vacation portions of Volunteer Way to read it in the committee.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Perfect. Township committee members, Judy?
We had a wonderful event at Lake Lenape. It was the dragon races, but I didn't see Mr. Sandman there.
No, my law firm did not do it this year. I'm officially a senior citizen now, so.
The cars were parked out to our parking lot, and, it was really, really, a successful event. The only thing is that they weren't encouraged to get one of the local fire departments to collect donations. But I guess that has to do with the Gilda Foundation, that all monies go to the charity. So they had one lady out there collecting donations and directing traffic, or maybe 2. So hats off to her. She did a good job. And I noticed we had the triathlon, but I didn't notice a lot of participants. Is that, anyone know anything about that? Well, it hadn't happened the year before because of the road and the potential for, problems. People might fall and so on and so forth. But I think this will really grow a lot bigger in forward years. I think it's a lot of people say they enjoy watching it. So that's it.
Thank you, Judy. John?
I don't have, the questions I had were actually answered by the engineer, which is, we're so happy to see the development that's happening and progress along the Black Horse Pike corridor. We'd like to see a little more of that going on in town, but we have a a new storefront, new occupant in a storefront on just off of Main Street in 50. There's a yoga classes that are going to be held in there, and possibly down in town. There's talk about maybe some use of that business that's at Diane's on Main. They haven't come in and talked to the township yet, but it's exciting to hear that finally something might happen there. It's been paper on the windows for 6 years or 7 years now, and I think Main Street is we're starting to see some things that are encouraging. Of course, that started with the Intex company out there, and if we can see more development coming along to help fill out the Main Street, that would be exciting.
That would be.
And that's all I have.
Very good. Roger?
Yeah, last week we did receive the new fire truck for Lauderdale Fire Department, and committee was there. And I think one of the things that I liked about the new truck was that it's an all-inclusive type of truck. I mean, they actually took their local rescue truck and they took all the equipment from that and had it placed in the new truck, and it was compartmentalized everything. So if they go out on a call now, they don't waste any time. They got a section of the truck, they slide out the compartment, there's the jaws there. They have everything you could conceivably think of. And a lot of people will be able to see this when we have National Night Out on the 7th. I mean, it's always impressive when you come to that event to see all the good emergency response equipment we have, and I think it's a credit to the community for always placing public safety first. The other thing I wanted to just talk about, and I've been a proponent of it for years, is the return of the energy tax receipts to our communities. And obviously, I've had a number of conversations with both the senator and the assembly people, and of course, it's the same old comment that I hear: you'll never have enough people in Trenton voting on it. But a bill was sponsored this year by Chris Brown, Senator Brown, and you know, it would have increased the New Jersey state budget by about $331 million. And at a time in which they're not trying to find a way to decrease taxes but increase them, I think this would have been the property tax relief that every municipality's been looking forward to. I mean, our share of that would have been $2,915,000 plus. And, you know, having that in your budget every year, that the state finds a way to waste, and what we have to do every year, compete to get that money back in some form from the state. That's what they call best practices. So, but I just, hopefully, one day while I'm still on this earth, I would like to see a return to the municipalities. Thanks, Mayor.
Welcome. Rodney?
Well, during the past couple of weeks, I have entertained my 5 grandkids and used up all my energy. Wasn't able to participate in as many things as I would have liked to, but I did, including the dragon race. I was looking forward to watching that and maybe even participating. And I missed, unfortunately, the opportunity for my youngest boy to see the fire truck. I was a little hesitant about bringing him there, but I should have.
You could have. He would have enjoyed it.
He would have. He certainly would have enjoyed it.
Had his picture taken.
Yeah. The one thing I did attend, though, is the Tech Center's 60th anniversary, and that was quite an event. 60 years since the Tech Center was established, and there was a huge crowd there, a lot of retirees. Van Drew was there. You had the Deputy Secretary of Transportation. You had the FAA Administrator, some county officials, and other people. It's really interesting. The historian was there also, and she went over the history of the Tech Center. It's very, very interesting. And once again, unfortunately, most people don't realize the impact that center has had on the safety of aviation, which once again is the safest form of travel we have. And if people knew what went on there, they'd certainly appreciate it, because it's a tremendous effort on the part of the FAA and the industry to make it safe. But it was a very good conference, and it's certainly a resource that we can be proud of. That's all I have.
Thank you, Rodney. I just want to comment about the fire truck that the Laureldale Fire Department received, or we brought in last week, 2 weeks ago. To watch those guys with that fire truck was like a bunch of kids at Christmas running downstairs. It was really great. But, you know, when you stand back and you watch them, you know, you see their passion for what they do. They are very dedicated to it. Quite a few of them there were on the truck committee, where they've spent a couple years planning and building that truck on paper, and to see it there in front of you, it's pretty exciting. It's a beautiful piece of equipment. It's well worth the money that we paid for it, and I'm very happy to be part of the committee to make it happen. So just want to congratulate them, and I'm sure they're going to take good care of it. We're going to open up to public comment. Anybody in the public like to speak? Harry?
Harry Rogers, 1069 Morningside Drive. I'd like to comment on the presentation made by the superintendent this evening. First of all, he handed out this little brochure listing the projects and what they're going to estimated cost. If you add them up, it comes to $15.3 million, as stated in their own brochure, but yet they're asking for $22 million.
He stated early on that the state is coming up with the rest of that money, but they have to bond for the whole amount.
The difference between what it shows on the sheet, the less, a little bit under $14 million versus what the actual, if the state bonds it, correct?
That sounds backwards to me.
Why is that?
No.
Why do they have to bond for the entire amount if you're getting money from a grant?
You know, that's way above
Does
my
that money
pay grade, but
immediately go back to pay off the principal, or does that get put into the budget?
I couldn't tell you that, but I do believe that once the project's done, that's when the state puts their money in. I don't know that for sure. I don't know.
And I will tell you, for some of our projects, we have to spend the money first before we're reimbursed. And I think this is that kind of situation.
But once the money has been bonded, that debt exists for $22 million.
And
if you get a bonus payment of whatever your bonus payment is, where does that money go? Does it go against the principal of the bond, or does it get dumped into the budget?
I couldn't tell you.
I could be worth knowing. Also, the administrator made the assertion in response to Mr. Silva's question about why are we having a special election. And the state of New Jersey decided several years ago that school board elections can be non-politicized in a special portion of the ballot. And that was done universally across the state. And now we're having this special election, which I believe cost upwards of $20,000 to conduct. Now, if we just take some rough estimates, 25% of people turn out for the primary, a fraction of that are going to turn out for this particular
Absolutely right.
evolution. I believe this referendum is intentionally scheduled so that only persons who have a self-interest
Is those for it?
come out and vote for this particular referendum. And what we're doing here is we're allowing the superintendent, the school board, to enshrine really negligent practices. They have refused year after year after year to put these repairs into their budget. Nobody that owns buildings neglects the maintenance and then cries crisis so that the maintenance could be done. But yet, we see this happened 4 years ago, same exact sad story. We got to have, and I believe it was close to 25 million at that particular time.
That's why.
That was the three-part. There was money spent for the election. There was money, which I believe I'm sorry, there was money spent to promote the,
You're talking about
The
Greater
referendum.
Harbor?
Greater Egg Harbor.
Greater Abe,
yes,
yes.
Yeah.
That
Mr.
only
Ke- Mr.
passed
Keenan.
one out of the
portion.
three, I believe, right?
Yes.
But even so, there was money spent to promote the school board's position. And once again, they didn't get everything they wanted, but they refused to put these projects into their capital budget, which should be part of their annual budget, but it's not. And by allowing these, sorry, let me start again. By voting to accept this referendum, all we're doing is encouraging completely negligent management on the part of the school board and the superintendents to salary load their budgets and then come cry wolf time after time after time when they've neglected to do their job. If there's any way this board can move that election from a special date in September, I forget which one it is.
October.
October? Okay.
October.
I think it can wait 30 days until the November election.
That's why it's critical.
We're going to save approximately $20,000. That's money just completely and totally
That's why
wasted.
it's critical that the message that they delivered tonight should be delivered throughout the township so that more people can hear what they're talking about. Because if you only go to a limited number of people, there's a great segment out there that'll never hear anything about this.
Realistically,
I think.
they're not going to turn out to vote in a special election anyway. The turnout on this election will be roughly 15 to 20% of the registered voters in Hamilton Township. That's just a fact of life. And there's enough people connected to the schools, employees of the schools, to effectively move this measure over the finish line and get their $22 million. And what the administrator said tonight was incorrect.
Superintendent, I think.
Superintendent, thank you. Was incorrect, and I would say it was misleading, because the date of the special election is there primarily to take advantage of the extremely low turnout that is almost guaranteed by the nature of the way it's placed on the calendar. Is there anything this board can do to move that referendum to the November election?
I was going to ask that of the solicitor.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, I don't either.
I would ask you to
Find out.
investigate that. Time's growing short now. But I believe, and again, the state of New Jersey has decreed, I believe, was a change in our, was it a constitutional change, was it? To move the school boards to general elections? It was a big deal. It was a
Well,
big deal
we-
about 4 years ago.
We had the option, the townships had the option to vote on it, and I think we voted to have it during the general election, but I think we had a vote on that.
No. The concept
make a
of a
decision on it.
special referendum election, which, again, runs up a bill of in excess of $20 million. I'm sorry, $20,000. Got my zeros wrong, excuse me. But it's a complete and total waste of time, waste of money with a predetermined conclusion. And it simply shouldn't be.
If you don't, if you
Thank
don't
you.
mind my
think that he,
asking, I think one of the things that people never seem to address is that cost of elections. When I see the elections, I think there's so much, there's actually an amount of waste involved and a number of people involved. And it could be reduced if anybody gave it a serious look.
We can. I don't know if there's much we can do about it. It's probably already set.
But the debt you get is the debt you either vote for or don't vote for. So,
I think he made an error in what he said about not being political. He wants it not to be political, but we vote for all of our school board members on the national, the election day. So that was an oxymoron to me, that, we already vote for the school board members.
But I do want to ask one thing for you to consider, Mr. Rogers and others. I think one of the reasons for doing what they do with the operating cost versus capital cost is the state is covering 50% of this. if they've included the maintenance in the operational budget, then the township would have to pay, I mean, the community would pay for all of it. This way, the state picks up 50% of it, and I think that might be part of their consideration.
And he also definitely put the blame on the state, if you were listening to him, that the state was the reason why that the funding wasn't there to do these projects previously. I don't believe that, because maintenance is the school board's, part of it might be true, but the budget, their capital budget is where some of these items that are on that massive list of things to be done could have been handled if that money was budgeted appropriately at previous board sessions.
What organization runs their budget in such a way that we'll run deficits, somebody's going to bail us out?
Yeah.
Really, only government gets away with that kind of nonsense. That is just plain foolishness. And to budget in that way, Mr. Kuchard, in the hopes that a state grant's going to come through in 4, 5, 10, or 15 years, is irresponsible.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public like to speak?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, the ayes have it.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do you have a second?
Second.
A motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, the ayes have it.
Will the mayor fact